Have you ever asked her something simple and the answer felt harmless but somehow off? Not rude, not defensive, just a phrase she said 100 times before. Yet this time it lands differently. The timing is strange, the tone is a little too smooth, and suddenly the conversation feels closed before it really opened. You don't feel angry, you don't feel jealous, you just feel shut out, like a door moved half an inch without you seeing it. A lot of men are taught that noticing things like this makes you insecure, that if you can't prove something, you shouldn't even think about it. But there's a difference between paranoia and perception. Sometimes your mind isn't creating a story. It's reacting to a shift in emotional alignment. This video isn't about catching anyone in a lie. It's about understanding why certain phrases appear at certain moments and what they quietly protect. If you've ever felt that something was being hidden in plain sight, stay with me. We're going to look at this calmly, clearly, and without turning you into someone you don't want to be. There is a very familiar situation. You do not ask in a harsh way. You do not accuse. It is just a very normal question. A question about feelings, about schedules, about the two of you. And she answers with a sentence that sounds harmless. Your logic tells you there is nothing wrong here, but in your chest, something tightens. Not because what she said is wrong, but because it shows up at the exact moment you are already starting to feel pushed out. Men often ignore this moment, not because they do not feel it, but because they do not want to believe it. Once you have invested in a relationship, the brain prefers stability over truth. It whispers, do not overthink it, you are probably just too sensitive. But intuition does not argue, it just keeps knocking. Doubt is not weakness, it is a self-protection reflex, like when you walk into a room and feel the air is slightly off. Nothing obvious. But you sense it, your body gets the signal before your mind can explain it. And when you hear a very normal sentence but something inside you tightens, that is not you being paranoid. That is you recognizing a pattern. Imagine this, you ask, have you been okay lately? A gentle question, no attack, no interrogation. She answers, you are thinking too much. That sentence is not rude, not heavy, but it does something very subtle. It shifts the focus from your feelings to your fault. Instead of talking about how she is doing, the conversation becomes about how you are wrong for feeling the way you do. And what makes you uncomfortable is not the content of the sentence. It is the reason it was said. It shows up right when you are trying to open a door to connection, and it closes that door. Most men react in two ways. One is they apologize for feeling, yeah, maybe I really am overthinking. The other is they start trying to prove they are not crazy, giving examples, logic, data. Both pull you a little farther away from yourself. You either erase your own feelings or you turn yourself into someone who has to defend his intuition. What is needed here is not interrogation, it is recognition, not accusation, observation. When a sentence shows up in the right context at the right time and repeats often enough, it stops being just a sentence. It becomes a language pattern. You are not the police. You are a man with self-respect. You do not hunt for evidence. You read signals. You do not try to hold on to someone with suspicion. You hold yourself with clarity. And if you have ever heard a very normal sentence and felt yourself tighten inside, leave a short comment. I've felt this. Or just yes. No explanation needed. Just so you know you are not the only one who has been in that moment. Because from here, we are going to start naming very specific patterns, not to jump to conclusions, but to help you understand what is really happening, even when the words are trying to calm you by saying nothing is wrong. In this part, we are not arguing about who is right or wrong. We are reading how a sentence is used to shut a conversation down. The core line is, you are reading too much into this, or you are overthinking. It is not a big deal. This sentence does not always mean betrayal, but when it shows up in the right context, it becomes a pattern worth paying attention to. Sign 1. This sentence shows up when you ask very gently. Behavior. You only ask about feelings or schedule. Have you been okay lately? Where did you go today? She answers, you are reading too much into it. Psychology. The focus shifts from the content of your question to the fault of the person asking. Instead of talking about how she is doing, the conversation becomes about how you are wrong for feeling that way. Common mistake, you apologize for feeling. You pull back your own intuition. Her logic, you do not take back your feeling. You stay quiet and keep observing. Once can be defense. Repeated times become a pattern. If you have heard this line before, comment, yes. Sign 2. She does not answer the question. She only judges you. Behavior. You ask something specific. She does not explain or clarify. She just says you are overthinking. Psychology. When someone does not want to open the truth, they use a label to close the conversation. The sentence is not meant to explain. It is meant to end things. Common mistake. You start trying to prove you are not crazy, giving examples, logic, data. Her logic, you do not defend yourself, you note the avoidance. What gets left unanswered matters more than the judgment. Sign 3. The sentence comes with a change in behavior. Behavior. She says you are overthinking, but she also texts less, touches less, asks less about you. Psychology. The words are meant to calm you. The behavior is meant to pull away. When those two do not match, the body is telling the truth. Common mistake. You believe the words and ignore the behavior. Her logic. Always prioritize behavior over words. Compare the old rhythm between you to the current one. Like the video if you are clearly seeing this shift. Sign 4. She uses this sentence to avoid every sensitive topic. Behavior. Every time you talk about the relationship, the future, or emotions, you are overthinking. Psychology. Avoiding dialogue when there is inner conflict. Not because she hates you, but because she does not want to open difficult doors. Common mistake. You stop talking. You shrink yourself. Her logic. Watch whether she takes initiative to reopen connection. Someone who is still invested will find a way back. Sign 5. Her voice changes temperature when she says it. Behavior. No longer gentle, no longer curious. Her tone is colder, faster, more final. Psychology. When emotion shifts, the voice changes rhythm. The body speaks before logic does. Common mistake. You assume you caused it. Her logic. Separate your feelings from her reflex. You are not responsible for the way she avoids. Follow her logic to learn how to read between the lines. Sign 6. She does not ask how you feel in return. Behavior. She only says you are overthinking and stops. She does not ask, why do you feel that way? Psychology. Someone who is still invested is curious about your emotions. Losing curiosity means losing investment. Common mistake. You swallow your feelings. Her logic. Recognize this. Not being heard is important data. These patterns do not accuse anyone. They only help you see your position in the conversation more clearly. And that is the spirit of her logic. Read language and behavior. Keep self-respect. Do not hunt for evidence. Do not lie to yourself. In the next part, we go into the climax. The final sign is not in what is said, but in the long silence you keep before you dare to ask again. After everything you've just heard, you might be in a strange mental space right now. Not angry, not certain, just unsettled. A quiet tug in your chest where part of you feels something is off, and another part keeps telling you, maybe I'm reading into it. And honestly, taken on their own, none of those moments seemed big enough to draw a hard conclusion. But relationships don't shift because of one sentence or one night. They change because of rhythm, because the overall tone starts moving in a new direction. It's like the temperature in a room rising so slowly you don't notice until you're already uncomfortable. Like a steering wheel turned just a few degrees, and miles later, you're nowhere near the road you thought you were on. Or like a low background noise that plays for so long, silence starts to feel unfamiliar. What really matters isn't what she says in one conversation. It's what you start doing inside yourself over time. When a man has to constantly calm his own doubts, to tell himself, it's probably nothing, or I'm just being too sensitive, that inner dialogue becomes part of the pattern. Not to accuse anyone, not to jump to conclusions, just to notice what position you're slowly being moved into. And from here, the picture shifts into a deeper layer. The patterns ahead don't live in vague discomfort anymore. They show up in the ways a man gradually loses his footing in the relationship without realizing it. This is where many people later look back and think, I felt it, like I just didn't want to see it. And if you've ever been in this feeling, stay with me. If in part 2 we looked at how the sentence is used, here we look at what starts happening inside you when that sentence gets repeated over time. And the danger is not in the sentence itself. You are overthinking. The danger is that you begin to doubt yourself. Sign 7. The climax. Sign. This sentence shows up after you have been silent for a long time. Behavior. Before this, you stopped asking much, not because you stopped caring, but because you tried a few times, and each time you got shut down with, you are reading too much into it. You are too sensitive. There is nothing to be tense about. So you started holding it in. You told yourself there is no point in saying anything. Then one day you ask again, gently, carefully. And she still says, "You are overthinking." Flip the perspective. The danger is not the sentence. The danger is that you had to hold your intuition down for so long before you dared to speak again. What is happening inside you? When a man is repeatedly told that he is overthinking, he starts to censor his own emotions, downplay his own intuition. Ask himself, maybe something is wrong with me. You stop asking what is actually happening, and you start asking, am I wrong for feeling this way? And here's the biggest loss, not the truth, but the right to trust your own inner sense. The metaphor. It is like driving with a compass that is slightly off. At first you see the needle shake. You think it is probably broken. So you keep going, until one day you are very far off course and still think you are headed the right way. The line, "you are overthinking," is like someone constantly telling you your compass is wrong, and you believe them. The most uncomfortable part, it is not the possibility that she has someone else. It is the feeling that you are no longer being listened to. No one is curious about your inner world anymore. You are no longer the place she wants to open up to. And you have gotten used to staying quiet in order to keep the peace. But that peace does not come from connection. It comes from you shrinking yourself. The message of this part. If you are in this stage, you are not alone. A lot of men have stood exactly where you are standing now, not clearly betrayed, no evidence, just no longer emotionally in sync. And in the next part, we talk about the final step, not to accuse, but to move you out of the passive role. And before this video fades out, let's place the focus back where it actually belongs, not on whether she is guilty or innocent, not on whether your suspicion is right, but on something quieter and more honest, how you are treating yourself inside this relationship. Because the real issue is rarely one phrase. It is whether your self-respect is slowly being traded for uncertainty. A lot of men live with the belief, if I just try a little harder, things will work. Try to be more patient, more understanding, less reactive. But sometimes trying harder is no longer love. It is just fear wearing the clothes of loyalty. And in those moments, leaving is not failure. It is not weakness. It is simply the first time you stop negotiating with a reality that has already been clear. That is what her logic stands for. Not a weapon, not a tool to control, not a system built on suspicion. Her logic is a way of observing without panic, a way of staying calm when emotions want to take over the wheel, and above all, a compass of self-respect, so you do not lose your dignity while trying to save something that may no longer see you clearly. So before you focus on what she might be hiding, ask yourself this: are you staying because you feel chosen, or because you are afraid of what the truth might require from you? If you have ever lived in that question, you do not need to justify yourself here. You are not on trial. But if you want to share what that moment felt like for you, you are welcome to, quietly, honestly. And if you want to keep your mind clear, your reactions grounded, and your sense of self intact, her logic will still be here. Not to push you, not to pull you, just to walk with you while you stay awake and keep your dignity.